All right, let's talk about the Chicago Bears. It's obviously been a very exciting and impressive offseason for the Bears up to this point. Of course, the Ben Johnson hire, that was the big deal that the Bears had to pull in. They got that done. They made a couple of moves early in this free agency cycle. Even though the new league year hasn't officially kicked off yet, the Bears have done a really good job being aggressive. But as much credit as some people have given the Bears, I think there's even more credit that's deserved because the Bears have quietly, again, no one's kind of talking about this when you look into the numbers, made a really impressive move. We'll get into that in 1 second. But first, I'm Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, so the Bears earlier this offseason, just a few short days ago, in fact, they made two really interesting deals that didn't surprise a lot of people, but the aggressive nature of them really kind of stuck out. Of course, the Bears traded for offensive guard Jonah Jackson from the Los Angeles Rams after the Rams had said, "Hey, listen, Jackson's not a starter with us. We're hoping to trade him for something." The Bears acquiesced, and then of course the Bears made big news when they traded for former Kansas City Chief and former New England Patriot Joe Thuney, who's a really solid player, even though he's now deep into his 30s. But when you look behind the scenes and look at the numbers behind the strategy, it really shows the impressive job the Bears front office did. So let's get into our first chart here, because I think it's really important to see it visually. So if you throw it up here, this is run blocking grade according to PFF. You can see right there two bars. The one on the left is the Bears 2024 run blocking grade, and the one on the right is the projected Bears 2025 run blocking grade. And you can see with two moves that don't break the bank, remember the Bears still have, after those acquisitions, north of $40 million in cap space. They surrendered a fourth and a sixth round pick in totality. So it's not like they broke the bank in draft capital either. They improved their run blocking grade by over 10 points. That's a massive leap. In fact, if you now go to the second graphic we have, you can see it there. This is run blocking rank according to PFF. So 32 would be the best in the NFL, 0 would be the worst. You can see the Bears in 2024 right about average. Suddenly they now go almost into the top 25% based on their projected ranking based on the additions of Jonah Jackson and Joe Thuney. Right. This is what happens when you make really solid decisions to solve one key problem. If you go after it right and you take the right approach, you can fix your biggest weaknesses very quickly and very efficiently. Personally, I wasn't a fan of the Jonah Jackson trade when you look at what the Bears gave up in the Rams situation with Jackson. But when you look at the numbers, it just makes sense. The Bears have gone overnight from a very average run blocking team to one of the top 10 run blocking teams in terms of their offensive line. Obviously, the center position is still a question mark. They're going to make a move there, but it's undeniable. The Bears did a great job, kind of slid under the radar when you look at the numbers, but they did a great job turning one of their weaknesses, or certainly areas of improvement, into a strength. Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this, but first, Bears fans in the comment section below, who's the next player you want the Bears to go after, either via trade or sign him via free agency? A lot of options out there. Of course, there's a few at the center position, but there's some other areas the Bears should probably address. Give us the guy you want the Bears to go after. Put him in the comment section below. But Miles, over to you. What are your thoughts on this latest update out of Chicago?
Yeah, Nick, I think, like you said, when you take everything the Bears have done into totality here, I really like what they do. I like that there has been a plan when they went to get these guys. Like you said, we may not have loved every move on its own that the Bears did, but when you combine everything together, it's looking like the Bears have a really smart plan of attack, which is not something that they've had for some time now. Seems like Ben Johnson, he's got an idea of what he wants to do with this offense, and getting the run blocking department upgraded on this team was a big part of that. And I think whenever they upgrade the center position as well, it's just going to skyrocket those future grades even more, no matter who they put in, because whoever that got slotted in at center right now is not very good when you look at it per PFF. But I think when we talk about the Bears, what they've been doing this offseason, I think they're kind of potentially, in my opinion, alluding to what they want to do offensively. When you go back to Ben Johnson's days with the Detroit Lions and what he did with that rushing attack, it was something kind of special. It's more of like a thunder and lightning type of approach with the running backs. You got the quick, speedy guy, you got the big power guy. And the Bears have that already as well with Swift and with Roshan Johnson as well. Swift is the more speedy, elusive type of guy, where Roshan Johnson's a little bit bigger, power style of running back. And I think showing that they want to upgrade this line, showing that Ben Johnson is looking to open up the passing game with the run. So I think these moves that they have made are even more important than we thought that they could be in the future. And I think it's kind of tipping their hand that this is going to be a Bears team. The offense is going to be a little bit different than we have seen in the past. That's good because whenever you hire a guy like Ben Johnson, that's what you're expecting. You're expecting something new, something exciting. You expect to scheme things a little bit better, probably see some more play action. I think this team's going to be just a lot different this year. And that's why, if I'm a Bears fan, I'm getting excited because these moves look really good on paper. And I think it alludes that this Bears offense is going to be much better this coming season than they have been in probably a decade, I would say.
Yeah, that's certainly not a stretch. And look, we talked about it, I think about a week ago, about one of the points of bringing in a guy like Ben John with his scheme here was the play action game. We brought up the stats. We had a cool chart showing that if you look at Caleb Williams's numbers with play action, his yards per passing attempt adjusted for factors and things like that, Caleb Williams was in the bottom quarter of the NFL. Jared Goff was in the top quarter. And we talked about it at the time. Play action is a lot about scheme, about how creative your offensive mind is. But the other element of play action is that the defense has to buy it, right? If you have an average or below average running game, play action is generally going to be much less effective because obviously linebackers and safeties, they don't have to aggressively go downhill to stop the run when they see the run action coming to them before it's a fake. The Bears with a better run blocking front, when of course the addition of Thuney here and Jackson and whoever they throw in at the center position in the future, I think will force defenses to really aggressively go downhill to stop the two-headed running attack that you mentioned, and it'll open up the play action game for Caleb Williams. And sometimes, I remember Phil Simms, quarterback, of course, for the New York Giants, and was on TV for a long time. He once talked about how a lot of people don't understand is that the difference between an efficient quarterback and an inefficient quarterback is a quarterback that has a good offensive line and a good scheme, and he throws a 3 yard pass to a tight end and he runs 50 yards for a touchdown, or a bad quarterback in a bad scheme and he throws a 3 yard pass to a tight end and he's tackled right there because he's not open. No one bought the fake. He says that's the difference, right? Really, if you're a talented quarterback with good leadership skills, good arm talent, things like that, that scheme, that offensive line, that can be the difference between bottom half of the NFL or Pro Bowl caliber. And I think that's what we're starting to see materialize with the Bears. And it gives Chicago credit. They could have fallen into the temptation most teams do with young quarterbacks. Let's look at the Houston Texans. A great example of this was CJ Stroud. What did the Texans do last year? Stroud, really nice rookie year. Future looks really bright. They had some issues on the offensive line, a few issues on the running game. Maybe they wanted to improve. They had the right offensive coordinator, so they thought, from that Kyle Shanahan kind of scheme, Sean McVay kind of scheme. What did they do? They went out, traded for the big name wide receiver. Okay, that's a little different. We have a rookie quarterback, that's fine. Traded for a running back, drafted tight ends, right? Extended a tight end instead of really going after and addressing the offensive line and getting better at running the football, opening up that play action, maybe a little pass protection help too. The Texans went the other way with it. They ignored the big guys up front and they didn't get any better. In fact, they regressed a little bit, and CJ Stroud regressed a little bit. The Bears are taking the right approach here. They understand. Now, look, we know the Bears have some talented guys on the outside, but they understand that the priority always has to be up front. We saw that in the Super Bowl, by the way. Line of scrimmage for the better part of 100 years of football has won championships. We've kind of lost track of that a little bit because of the greatness of Brady and Mahomes. But the reality is, even those guys had good offensive lines or defenses with good defensive lines. You need to be good up front. It starts right there. If you're not good up front, you're just not going to win. That's just the reality of it in the NFL. No matter how much you get the quarterback right, no matter how much you get coach right, no matter how many great skill players you have, you got to be good up front, whether it's front four on defense, your offensive line on the offense side of the ball. And give the Bears, again, I know it sounds simplistic, right? But give them a credit for being aggressive to address the problem. And here's an interesting question I have for you, Miles, because as we're recording this, it was breaking last night that the Seattle Seahawks traded their quarterback, Geno Smith, for a third-round pick. Does the fact that the Seahawks got a third-round pick for their quarterback make you rethink what the Bears gave up for Thuney and Jackson, fourth and a sixth-round pick respectively? Or do you think it's still, looking at the Bears strategy, it still was a good deal for Chicago?
I think it definitely makes you think about it somewhat. I think overall, I mean, when if they have a plan and they're getting players, and we kind of talk about this on our college channel a little bit, shout out, go check that one out. But when you talk about what people do in the recruiting cycles in college, there's two trains of thought. There's the old Jimbo Fisher adage that you like to talk about a lot of collecting talent, just getting the best player you can get with no theme or no plan. But then there's something that like Matt Rule in Nebraska does a lot better, and that's to get a good recruiting cycle, get a good team together. And that's why I give the Bears a little bit of, credence, a little bit of I see what you're doing here as far as the Bears are not collecting talent. They're not going out and getting just the highest, flashiest name out there that we've seen before. We see like the Miami Dolphins do this the last couple of years. They just go out and get the Jalen Ramsey, go get Tyreek Hill. Let's get the biggest name. And how did that work out for them? Not very good, really. So I think the Bears coming out here and saying, hey, we got a plan. We're going to get the guys that fit our plan, even if they got to pay a little bit over market value to get the guys that fit what they want to do. I still think it was a good deal for the Bears. Now, seeing everything together, seeing what they're going to do and the totality of how it's all planning out for the Bears.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there. And I also think an important factor considering after this, when we talk NFL, of course, is that the constraint of the salary cap is an important factor when it comes to any sort of compensation in a trade. And essentially what happened here is that the Bears gave up a fourth and a sixth. I know, we're looking at some future picks here, and they acquired for this year about $27 million in a cap hit, right? If you look at what the Raiders gave up, they sent a third round pick for Geno Smith. They're going to, based on reports, extend him to a mega deal, somewhere around $45 million a year. So you have to take that $20 million cap saving into focus. And that's one of the things people tend to forget when they evaluate trades. And I'm guilty of it too, because you see, why'd you give up a third or fourth round pick for that guy? What, he's not worth it, or he's worth a lot more, or whatever it may be. The salary cap constraint is really important. And that's one of the things I really like about these two decisions here by the Chicago Bears. I think Joe Thuney is definitely worth the cap hit. He's obviously an all-pro. And even Jonah Jackson, when you got signed by the Los Angeles Rams for $17 million per year, a lot of people thought that was a very fair price for a player of Jackson's caliber. And he's hitting the books right now for the Bears at 11.8 million. Again, according to overthecap.com, I just checked. So the Bears are doing a good job managing that salary cap constraint. And now they still have plenty of cap space, again, north of $40 million. Got to address the center position. There's a few areas they have to go after. But I think I'm going to circle back to this. The Bears, again, enacting a really smart plan, a great strategy. Give them a lot of credit. It's not easy to do. It sounds simple, but the reality is when you get caught in the hustle and bustle, trying to make multiple deals, if you go down a path, another teams recognize it. Sometimes they can pull a lot out of you in return. If the Bears held their cards close enough to the chest, I don't think they're done, like we said, going after the center position. But in just one short offseason, right, in just a few weeks, the offseason technically hasn't even started. They've gone from an average running team with an average offensive line to a top 10 group. And that can be the difference between disappointment like we saw last season and making the playoffs.